Hi, everyone, and welcome to the iSpring webinar series, where every week we talk about e-learning trends, share iSpring tips and tricks, and cover clients' cases. My name is Nadia. I'm a community manager at iSpring, and I will be the moderator for today's session. And today, we'll cover a very interesting topic: how to stay in the flow and leveraging iSpring from start to finish. And to do that, I've invited James, a dynamic learning training program leader and facilitator, and many, many more. Hi, James. Thanks a lot for tuning in. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Nadia, and I'm really happy to be here. And I'm happy to see everyone who has joined today's session.
Thank you so much. At this point, let me pass the mic over to you, James, to start the presentation.
Thank you, Nadia. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, everything is fine.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are today. Thank you so much for joining myself and the good folks at iSpring Solutions for this presentation, Staying in the Flow, Leveraging iSpring from Start to Finish. Now I'm going to get into a little bit about who I am in just a moment. But since I think folks should have a moment to think about why they are here, I'm going to pose a question to everyone right off the bat. And that is, when you saw the promotion for this webinar, I want you to think about what it was that made you register. Was it the concept of staying in the flow? Was that what really grabbed you? Was it that it was about iSpring and you're just someone who wanted to know more about it? And finally, I want you to think about your own experiences as from wherever you are. In other words, if you're an e-learning developer, think about the tools you've used and what you like about it and what you find hard, if you do. If you're a transitioning teacher or just someone at any organization that's been asked to create content, I'm really interested in knowing the answers to all of those questions. So you're welcome to put that in the chat at any time, because we're going to talk directly about what it is that you want to get out of today's session. And also, if you are tuning in after the fact to watch this presentation, a big shout out to you. Thank you very much for taking the time after the fact to come in and see what staying in the flow is all about. So just thanks very much for coming. So as you can see, we're going to be talking about creativity. We're going to be talking about maximizing your creativity by staying in the flow. We're also going to be talking about how I think iSpring Suite 11 is uniquely positioned to leverage the flow and keep you being productive, focused, and on track. So hopefully you'll feel the same way when we're done.
I'm sorry, James.
Yes.
I think that you don't share your screen right now.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Let me share that screen.
And also we have Frederick who's telling that he wants to push it to the limits, wants to make great quality learning content.
Awesome. Thank you, Frederick. And Nadia, chime in at any time and tell me what you see happening in the chat, because I'm in mission control. I've got screens all around me and a camera, in one direction and the screen in the other. So just pass on that information every time you want to jump in. So,
We have a few answers actually.
okay,
So
cool.
Kim,
Bring it
yeah,
on.
Kimera says, I want to learn more about what iSpring offers and also learning better ways to make great content.
Awesome.
And Kate says, interested in staying in the flow concept.
Perfect. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kimmer. That's great for me to know. I think it's impossible to overstate the importance as a presenter or a teacher in any walk of life, um, listening to and understanding your students and or your audience. Okay, so I can talk for hours about the concepts that we're going to be talking about today, but it helps me to know what people are looking for, so I can make sure I stay on track and give you guys what you need. So thank you so much for participating, for putting your answers in the chat, and you're definitely going to get both of those things. So, quick overview. What can you expect from today's session? Okay, we're here for an hour, but what's going to happen? Well, first, we're going to talk about whether or not this is the presentation for you. I think it is. I think I think it is, but you'll get the chance to decide for yourself early on, because I don't want to waste your time. After that, we're going to talk a little bit about me. I think it's important for you to understand where my ideas are coming from, what my background is. If you align with my experiences, things are going to resonate. If my experiences are very different from yours, hopefully you're going to see some things that make you think differently about your own, and hopefully get you more, give you a little more buy-in in your own creativity. Then there's the meat and potatoes, what I'm calling surfs up. Okay. Oh, and before I forget, huge shout out to iSpring for coming up with the surfer image for the promotional materials, because I had sent them an image that was more like a runner's track, like a quarter mile with all the lanes and stuff, because I was thinking about the start to finish. When they sent me the picture of the surfer on the board on the waves, that just got my creativity fired up. I was off and running. It had a big impact on the flow of today's session. So kudos to whoever came up with that. And then at the very end, as Nadia said, please, stick around, because you're going to get the chance to ask some specific questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. And there's also you're going to get a look at some of the resources that are going to be made available to you after today's session. Okay, so who is staying in the flow for? One of the things that I think about whenever I talk about iSpring in general and being creative as well, is that any conversation that you have about using a particular tool or being a creative is happening in a vacuum, unless you introduce what's actually going on in your day-to-day life. So I think most people today are being pulled in many different directions. You have lots of demands on your time, but that doesn't stop the need for you to be able to create quickly. So if you resonate with that idea, you're in the right place. Now, this is pretty unique. I say that this particular tool and this particular discussion is more for people who are not already deeply entrenched in using some other tool, potentially a more complicated tool than iSpring, and you have slaved over getting up to the highest level of expertise you can in that particular tool. Why do I say that? Not because I don't think iSpring is a fantastic tool that everyone should use, but I think it's because once you've achieved that level of mastery, you have gotten in the flow. You are now able to do that which the tool was created for. So I'm not so understand that. I think if you already think of yourself as the guru on top of the mountain and you know everything you need to know, well, more power to you. Stay there and keep delivering amazing content. Okay. But if you're someone who is trying to figure out what can I use that's going to help get out of my way the stuff that slows me down and stops me from being creative, well, then this is for you. And finally, if you are curious about different ways that iSpring Suite 11 makes it possible for you to jumpstart your creativity, especially if you're already familiar with PowerPoint, this is for you. Okay, so who am I? Obviously, you can see on the screen, this is a bit from my LinkedIn profile. The thing I'm proudest of is my people first, tools second mindset, okay? Because the most amazing tool in the world isn't going to be the right tool to use all the time. But people and their creativity and their ideas should always be top of mind, should always be what we're trying to emphasize and strengthen. So I've been at this a long time. I can't hardly believe it myself. I've been creative. I've been creating learning solutions and training, leading people for 25 years. And I've worked in several different industries. Um, and so know that as I talk today, my experiences in all those different businesses and over that long period of time are all sort of helping to feed what I have to tell you today. And before I forget, if you are on LinkedIn and you are watching this, whether in real time or afterwards, please look me up. Please connect with me. Let me know how you're doing. Tell me about what you find challenging, and let's build our network together, because I think that's a great way to learn and to better yourself. So please do reach out on LinkedIn. But beyond that, who else am I? Well, I've been an actor, and as you can see in this picture, a Shakespearean actor, believe it or not. But in addition to that, I'm a photographer. I build computers. I'm a producer. I'm a singer and a songwriter and a musician. Obviously, I'm an instructional designer and I'm an online presenter. So I have all of that in my background and more. But what is it about these things that I think is worth me bringing up? It's that they all place an incredible emphasis on creativity. You have to be creative on demand. Well, how do you do that? And that's part of why we're here today, is to talk about how to get creative on demand and to maximize your potential. So that's a little bit about me. So what do we mean by staying in the flow? I put that question out to everyone who's on this call right now. Go ahead while I'm talking, put in the chat, let me know what you think staying in the flow is. What does it mean to you? Especially if it was the thing that drew you to today's webinar. I really want to know. I have a lot of different ideas about it, and I'm going to be sharing some of those with you. Some concepts that I think it's important to think about as we go through this process is that distraction, anything that's pulling your focus, equals lost time. And I think we can all agree that having time to do what we need to do is the most precious commodity, right? If you have enough time, you can do anything. So we need to figure out how to maximize the time you do have. And flow, the flow state that I'm going to call it, is really what enables your creativity. If you're on this call, there's a good chance you suspect that you are a creative person. Um, and if you don't think you are as creative as you'd like to be, know that I'm telling you right now, you are far more creative than you give yourself credit for. All you need to do is figure out how to unlock that creativity by removing that which stands between you and your flow. So, again, if you're watching this either now or in the future, you are a creative god or goddess. Know that, believe that. That is something that cannot be taken away from you. If you're a human being, that applies to you. So, how can we minimize lost time and maximize creativity? And I see some answers coming into the chat. So I'll pause here. If Nadia, you want to jump in and
Yeah, sure. So
talk
we
about them?
have, yes, little answers. So Sresco says that keep up with the developments in the technology for my part. And Rai says staying up to date with processes. And myself
Oh,
answer
yes.
for me is to be in resource and in balance.
Very good. Very good. So all of those things are relevant to today's topic. So we'll move ahead, and thank you very much for weighing in. Um, so we're talking about maximizing our minimizing our distractions, maximizing our time, maximizing our creativity. Something that affects all of us on a day-to-day basis are distractions. Okay, there have been a lot of studies made about what it's like to try and work in our current society with technology and the demands on our time. This particular uh, this particular sentence refers to the notion that you might have up to 60 different distractions happening to you during a given day. Obviously, distractions rob us of time, and they also rob us of creative flow. And it can take as much as 23 minutes to fully get back into your flow after having had a distraction like an email notification popping in or your phone, any always on communication notifier, social media, either posts or a platform trying to get your attention. Just the habit of picking up your cell phone, because that's what we do all day long. If you have a cell phone, you're likely on it more than you realize. Being pulled into unnecessary meetings. I hate unnecessary meetings. Multitasking, a thing that apparently only 2.5% of us are actually able to do. So if you split your focus thinking you're doing more than one thing at a time, the reality is that you're actually doing one thing at a time, but you're not doing it as well as if you're not doing it as well as you would be if you were only doing that thing and not splitting your focus. Clutter, both in your physical space and more importantly, with regards to your time. If you let other people set your time schedule for you, it's likely to be very cluttered. And interruptions from coworkers, family members, and pets. So, managing distractions is obviously very important. Managing time is one of the most important things you can do to set yourself up to be in the flow. So I'm not going to read everything on these slides. We have a lot to cover today, but here are some things to think about doing. Scheduling consistent, fixed, and frequent focus time, time that you are giving to yourself to think about only one thing, and that being creative in your work. Planning your next day and prioritizing things in terms of the order of their importance, in terms of when they get done and how they get done, resisting that urge to pick up the phone, disabling notifications, disabling connectivity, setting a timer to keep you from to at the end of when it goes off, then you can re-engage, but until then you stay in the flow. Um, Remembering to take regular breaks, get some exercise, get fresh air and a snack. You'd be amazed at what your mind will throw up to you to ponder and be creative with as soon as you step away from the thing you've been so focused on. So fewer distractions means more time spent in the flow. But so what is the flow? So if you came and you're interested in the concept of flow, now we're going to get into that. What is flow? Well, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, considered to be one of the co-founders of positive psychology, thinks of flow as those moments when you're completely absorbed in a challenging but doable task. That is key. The idea that you are not overwhelmed, the idea that you are being challenged, the idea that the task that you've set yourself to do is doable. All of those things are very important. We're going to talk about artists and dancers in just a second, believe it or not. But one thing you can say for sure about any artist is that until they have practiced and gotten their creative muscles in shape, they can't get in the flow. Okay. Then that's what's known as learning, right? If you are learning something new, you are challenging yourself and you are absorbing new information, but you are not engaged in a task that is doable but challenging. It's a different way of thinking. And by now you've had a chance to read a little bit more about the importance of flow in everyday life. And you're welcome for the phonetic pronunciation, because when I first saw his name, I had no idea. So I figured I'd give everyone else a way to pronounce Mihai's name. Some of the characteristics of flow. Why is it important to understand the characteristics of flow? Because if you don't know what it is, you don't know if you're in it, and you don't know how far away from it you are. So these are things that I would encourage you to think about, evaluate for yourself to determine if you're in the flow. Do you have complete concentration on the task at hand? Do you have clarity when it comes to the goal that you've set for yourself? And are you receiving a reward for simply doing the task in your mind and some kind of positive feedback? That's really important. That's how it's going to feel. If you're in the flow, you're going to feel good about what you're doing. the transformation of time, right? If you've ever experienced time seeming to speed up or slow down, it's a good indicator that you are in or near the flow state, that the experience is intrinsically rewarding, that you are experiencing a sense of effortlessness and ease, that you are perceiving a balance that exists between challenge and skills. We talked about that on the last slide. Nadia mentioned the importance of balancing her resources. That's key. That your actions and awareness are merged. Think again of a dancer. Losing self-conscious rumination. How often do you self-consciously ruminate? And how many times has anyone ever asked you that? But I bet it happens more often than you want it to. And finally, that you have a feeling of control over the task. One of the things that I talked about in the promotional materials was the feeling as though you were overwhelmed by everything you had to learn in order to be creative, in order to create, and that you were constantly having to stop doing and learn. Well, being in control, having a sense of being in control is key to being in flow. And if you don't know what you're doing and you don't understand the tools that you have to use, you won't achieve that flow state. Nakamura states that inducing flow is about the balance between the level of skill and the size of the challenge at hand. So once again, we're seeing this comparison between what it is that you need to do and how you feel about accomplishing it, whether it's within your grasp, what's your comfort zone, right? So things you can do to help achieve the flow state: quiet your mind, reduce distractions, and open a channel to a free associative, non-self-critical state. That's so important. If you're feeling judgmental about the work that you're doing, if you're beating yourself up while you try to create, please be aware that that is an example of not being in the flow. So you should try to be kind. That's the fastest way to get back into the flow state, is cut yourself some slack, give yourself a break, pat yourself on the back for what you are doing. Pay attention to your state of mind. If you're feeling distressed, distracted, or disconnected, that means you're not in flow. When you feel stuck, stop clicking the mouse. That's my phrase for that. Just step away. You've probably fallen out of the flow. And just in general, when it comes to staying in the flow, there are some brain waves that are better surfed than others. So what you're looking to achieve is something more akin to an alpha state. So if you look up brain waves, alpha is what we're looking to accomplish. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but I am an artist and I love this quote. And I think the idea of instructional designers talking about dance is just so cool. So I had to include it. I'll let you read this quote from Martha Graham to Agnes DeMille. Martha Graham was a pioneer of American dance, and she talks about the importance of keeping the channel open. And I've also got a quote here from Agnes herself, who is a choreographer and a dancer, and they're talking about the importance of pushing against, struggling with finding that flow, and how you can never stop trying to get in the flow. It's vital to everything that you do and want to achieve. So you're going to get a recording of this. You're going to get a copy of this. So you're going to get to read that in depth. But hopefully that was kind of a surprise. And now we come to the part of the program where we're talking about how iSpring in particular, I think, serves very well to support you in your quest to achieve flow. I think of staying in the flow as doing what you know. And iSpring, for a number of reasons that we're going to talk about, is an enabler. Okay, it's going to enable you to achieve that flow state. So another question for folks in the chat. And Bob, I saw Bob couldn't stay to the end, but I appreciate you joining. And a Pomodoro timer. I don't know what that is, Frederick, but thank you very much for this, for mentioning that. And so sorry, I got distracted by the chat. I saw some people had to leave. If what I'm interested in knowing, this is the question I was going to ask. What I'm interested in knowing is if you are here in the room, how familiar are you with PowerPoint? I feel like 10 years ago, when I first discovered iSpring, PowerPoint was the tool that everyone at work had available to them. Nowadays, there are a lot of different products that do the kinds of things that PowerPoint does. I think PowerPoint is a powerful tool. And if you are already familiar with it, that's one of the advantages to using iSpring, because you are leveraging so much of PowerPoint's built-in functionality, but it's kind of on steroids. So in fact, I think I've heard people at iSpring say that exact thing, that it's like putting PowerPoint on steroids to use iSpring Suite. So think about that, because again, if PowerPoint is something you're already familiar with, or you know there are people around you that might be looking to pick up a tool and they're already familiar with PowerPoint, iSpring is a great tool to add on to that. And the fact that it's integrated right into PowerPoint means that you have access and can download hundreds of templates and online resources from the internet that have been created for PowerPoint, because everybody uses PowerPoint. So you have this huge well of resources. We're going to talk about the kinds of things that you do as an instructional designer, but conducting a needs analysis and creating a storyboard, that's right up there. There's not going to be any project that you're engaged in where that isn't happening at some stage of the game. So you can download those templates and put them right into your iSpring project. Plus, iSpring builds in features to create quizzes, interactions, role play scenarios, screencasts, and simulations. They're all baked into the tool, very clearly laid out, easy to use, again, keeping you in the flow. You don't have to stop what you're doing and go pick up another tool. You don't have to find the other document that relates to your project. It's all there in front of you in this one PPTX file, which we'll talk about again in a moment. Plus, iSpring Suite, adding the library of backgrounds, characters, icons, and text-to-speech voices. All of those things are at your fingertips, easy to use, and are going to help keep you in the flow. So here we come to the start to finish, right? So how does iSpring help you throughout your journey? Okay. The process that solves a problem by way of a learning solution can be defined and completed in many ways. I would say that it could happen in as many ways as you have people creating content, but we know at least that there are 100 or so different models out there describing what you should be thinking about as you create learning content. Some examples of the activities: collecting data, designing, developing, and deploying solutions, and then evaluating how effectively the learning transfer has been as a result of your learner looking at your solution. Here you can see an example of the ADDIE model, breaking that down at the bottom of the slide. But in addition, there's collaboration, there's review, and evaluation that are necessary, and they are going to keep happening throughout your process. So any tool that makes it easier for you to accomplish those tasks from start to finish is your friend and is going to help keep you in the flow. So again, okay. So over the next few slides, we're going to talk about these examples of that sort of content. We're going to talk about the needs analysis. We're going to talk about storyboards. We're going to talk about content design and templates. We're going to talk about interactions, screencasts or simulations, role play scenarios, and assessments and quizzes. So we're going to see how iSpring is going to enable you to create those solutions while staying in the flow. So the first example is a needs analysis. So conducting a needs analysis can be done in lots of different ways, but what's important is remembering what are the questions that need to get asked and recording those answers. And you should be constantly referring back to the answers you got when you conducted your needs analysis, okay? So having the needs analysis information right in your project, the same project that you are creating your content in, is a great way to stay in the flow. It's always available to you. And as a matter of fact, I recommend combining your project materials into a single PPTX file, because it just means you spend that much less time looking around for that email that somebody sent you or that document that you saved, maybe in a different folder. So again, organization, reducing the clutter, staying in the flow. I went online and I went to a site called slidesalad.com, and they offer some resources for free and some at what I think is a pretty reasonable rate. A bunch of resources related to training, and that includes a deck about performing a needs analysis. So I purchased a template that helps you understand the needs analysis process and help you understand what questions to ask. And that is going to be a resource that everyone who's watching this video, who's registered for this video, is going to be getting access to. So, and it's all in a PowerPoint. So you can take that PowerPoint, put it into, start your first project in iSpring. All that information is there at your disposal. So that's one way. We talked about storyboards. So let's take a look at an example of a storyboard that is designed for use in PowerPoint that you can leverage for your content creation. It's created by a company called Bell Vista Studios. They're based in Australia. They are an amazing team of instructional designers working together, consulting and solving business issues with their strengths. And they have created something they call the Creator Hub, and they regularly drop free content alongside their paid offering. So I have nothing to do with Bell Vista Studios. I discovered them on social media. I've been in touch with them. I think they are a fabulous team. They create great products. And that's another resource, this storyboard template, that is going to be made available to you. So I've embedded it in this presentation just so you can take a quick look at the information that is included, and notice that it's a PowerPoint. So you can drop it into your project. You can duplicate some of these pages to fill in the answers to questions, and keep it at your fingertips as you work. And then the last page, this is going to give you how to find them and some of the companies that work with them. So again, highly recommend Bell Vista Studios. And if Kim winds up watching this presentation after the fact, hey, Kim. So put your storyboard into your iSpring project and move on. Next, course designs and templates. We've all experienced that feeling of the beginning of a new project. You're looking at a piece of blank canvas, right? Some artists are really inspired by that blank white screen. Some of us panic because you're like, oh my God, how is this going to become the solution that I need it to be? Well, PowerPoint, again, has hundreds of templates and layouts that are available for you to start fooling around with. Anything that gets your juices flowing, that you personally appeals to you, you can jump in and start using. They even have a designer feature, which I'm not sure if you've noticed, but if you are on the design tab in PowerPoint, you can have a panel open on the right side of your screen that actually is giving you recommended ways to take what you've put on your slide and rearrange it. Okay, that's going to be in keeping with your template. So that's a wonderful gift. But then on top of that, iSpring 11 has tons more to choose from. This presentation that we're looking at today was something that I picked because I wanted to create this entire course using just iSpring and all of its resources. And it definitely made it easy for me to organize and pull my content together. And in this image here, you can see, in this image here, you can see where you're going to find it. Okay, so if you want to access slide templates, it's going to open up a window that looks like this. And so I encourage that. So I mentioned that as something that's going to help you stay in the flow. Now, interactions. If you are trying to create the most current modern e-learning or instructional materials possible, you're aware that a great deal of importance is placed on the way you present content, the way you interact with your learner. One of the things that is become very common is to change up the way people are getting the information presented to them. And so instead of the next, right, you're giving them interactive maps, or in this case, something like the accordion. So I was looking at this earlier. I'm going to go ahead and go back and show you. This was something that was very easy for me to create in PowerPoint. There's a whole collection of different types of interactions that you can create using images. And what I think is great is that iSpring makes creating these interior slides as easy as creating any other slide. So you can put images, you can put video, you can put text bubbles, you can add audio. It's like you get to create a course within a course. But what is significant is how easy and complete the process is. So you don't feel like, well, if I'm going to be building this, now I'm on my own. Now I have to sort of use only the options that are the limited options available to me. iSpring gives you the ability to customize this interface just like you were customizing a slide. And I think it's worth mentioning, one of the reasons I started using iSpring all the way back in like 2011, I think it was, that I first learned about iSpring, and all they had was a tool called Presenter, and it was just basically a way to convert PowerPoint presentations into online courses. What I loved about it was that how stable it was, how easily it worked, and how everything I threw at it turned out the way it was supposed to. So I would pack tons of videos, tons of audio. I would put courses inside courses, and it all just worked. So there's as much as I can appreciate working from a template, I encourage you also to use your imagination, look at that blank canvas for a while and see what comes to your mind. Because whatever you throw at it, I think iSpring is going to handle it. And that's also so key, right? When it comes to producing your content, you don't want it to crash. You don't want to lose your work. You don't want to feel like you're fighting with the machine. Okay. And iSpring, the developers, they have done a great job at keeping their tool stable, reliable, and continuing to add new features. So at this point, oh, Kate, thank you. Absolutely familiar with it. I'm assuming that relates to my question about PowerPoint. Excellent. So you are in a position, whether you work alone or with a team, if you and others are familiar with PowerPoint and you want to be able to jump into using a tool that's going to leverage that knowledge, iSpring is definitely the way to go. Screencasts and simulations. So it's obviously important to be able to provide multiple ways for people to get hands-on experience or be shown how to do something. The fact that iSpring has the built-in screen recording function is fantastic. I would love it if I could actually play for you one of the example that you can see a snapshot of here, but we're not going to be able to play audio through the system. So I'll just use this image for a moment to talk about what's cool about the screencasting functionality. If you know anything about video editing, you are probably familiar with some kind of a layout that gives you tracks or lanes that different content lives on, so that you can see how it appears, disappears, plays, and stops playing over time, right? So you've got this timeline and you've got multiple tracks. And in addition to recording your screen and recording your microphone, you can also, after the fact, bring in other content. Like, so you can see in this example, I brought in this acoustic loop, right? So there's background music. You can see there are gaps in my voice. Well, those were moments in time that I chose to edit out. And although you can't grab and select a section of, say, a video clip or an audio clip on the timeline, and then do something with what you've grabbed, you can do what's called a split. So if you have a couple of ums and ahs and maybe a delay that you want to get rid of, you just split the video or the audio before it and split it again after it, and then you can delete that piece in between. So that's how they've chosen to give you the ability to edit. It works. You just have to understand that that's what you're being asked to do. They've got a lot of transitions built in to help make the video clips better. One thing that I would like to see is a little more strength in the audio editing department, but only in the form of things like fade ins and fade outs. In general, one of the things I've always, as I said before, loved about iSpring was that I could throw tons of multimedia assets at my project and they would come out sounding great. I don't know how long you've been at this, but I've used Captivate since it was like version 2.5. I've used Lectora and Articulate and lots of other tools. And many times what I got frustrated by was that I would put in content that sounded great and looked great, but what came out on the other end was glitchy, had snaps, crackles, didn't sound great, low grade quality, or just didn't work the first time I tried to publish it. It's never been a problem with iSpring. And although they're still working on adding new features to their audio and video tools, the quality of what you get as an output is as good as what you put in. Even when you choose to set your settings at, say, less than maximum quality, you're still going to get great quality. So very effective tool. And if somebody has a question, particularly about that functionality, I'm happy to answer it in a few minutes. So this was the thing that the course that I had embedded. This was the screencast that I created. I've got the sound off, and I'm just going to move on so that we can talk about role play scenarios. This is ultimately my favorite part of using the newest version of iSpring, is how easy they make it for you to create role play scenarios. Between their collection of characters, backgrounds, and the different ways they let you string scenes together, oh my God, I had so much fun creating this content. So I'm going to go here. Again, you can't hear the audio, but this is what you see on the screen now is something that I'm narrating. I continue to narrate this. This is all about somebody being pulled in lots of different directions, by the way. Getting an email at 9 o'clock the night before about a new deadline while he came in early to work on a project that he was behind on. And when he heads to the office of the person that he's supposed to talk to about the new deadline, his boss's boss meets him in the hallway and tells him to go do something else. So again, interesting circumstance, something that probably we're all pretty familiar with. I'm going to jump to the end so you can see the progression of these slides. And then I'm going to just give you a quick look on the back end of what it looks like to build this. So Bill changes direction, heads off to see the next guy in the queue, saying we need an e-learning course. What's the problem? Et cetera, et cetera. So you can see lots of different backgrounds, lots of different characters, the fact that you can put audio in. So that brings me to the deck itself that I want to show you just briefly. So here, if I'm on my slide where I've embedded my role play and I click on the role play option in the ribbon, it's going to open up a window that's going to let me edit what I've created. And for me, it's opened on my third monitor. So just give me a second to drag it over here. We'll maximize this. And this is your sandbox. This is where you can create your individual scenes. And you can click on one of your scenes and you can see here, if you type into the message box, that's like the narrator. If you type into the character, that's what the character actually says. Now, you can choose a character, right? If I choose a character, there's a whole bunch baked in, but you can go grab more from the content library. And because there are hundreds of different poses for each character, you can choose the emotion. By simply picking the emotion of the scene, it will pick a particular pose for you. So you don't have to scroll through all these different choices and pick exactly which one you want. And you can also set the background. So when he first arrived at work, I've got him coming to the elevators, right? So all of that, very handy, very easy. And when it comes to adding your audio, that is as simple as clicking on the voiceover button. So now the voiceover option gives you the ability to, now everywhere you see a little play icon, those are places where there is audio and it's already been inserted. If there wasn't an audio clip there, you would see a red symbol to let you know that you could record it. So here's my tip. There's a great text-to-speech function in iSpring, and you have access to it when you are in a quiz, creating an interaction, creating a slide. So if you want to create a screencast where you're narrating the whole presentation, you have the ability to type in text and have it generate a voice, and then you can use that voice recording on the slide. A lot of the voices are quite good. I am not a fan of using AI and artificial voices to convey important information. If it's a casual scenario and the intent is not complex, I think a good sounding AI voice is fine. But I personally prefer it more if I am providing my stakeholder with an early version of something, because it saves me a ton of time of having to record everything myself. And if you have lots of different characters, again, you don't want the same voice doing all of them. So that's where the text to speech comes in handy in the role playing environment. However, I have not found a way to go into the text to speech module from inside the role play Talkmaster program, which gets launched when you click on that role play button in the PowerPoint ribbon. But here's how I got around it. I just use the text to speech option on a blank slide in my presentation. So the slide, I just create a working slide after where I plan to have my role play, and I use the text to speech function and I create my audio clips. Now, those audio clips get saved in a temp folder inside your project. So without getting into the weeds, just know that you can use text to speech, copy the MP3 that gets generated when you're happy with it, and then you can use where you see the X here. If there was not an audio clip here, and you would instead see a folder icon, and that folder icon lets you import your audio. So now you can have a scenario with multiple characters talking to each other, and you aren't trying to do all the voices yourself or get time on somebody else's calendar to provide the voices for you. You can use the text to speech option to help you there. So I see David asked a question. Can I use dead ends in role plays and how not to overdo it? And it looks like I have an answer live. Nadia, do you is it okay if I click the answer live? And I'm not
Yes,
sure. I'm
yes,
not sure how that
sure.
works. My first time using this platform. I guess I'm just gonna say, David, you can start and stop your scenario at any point. This layout that you see here on the screen isn't representing branching that results from someone choosing a different response so much as it's just showing how I moved from collection of related scenes to collection of related scenes. But just so people know, these arrows that you see connecting these scenes to each other, they get created automatically when you just click and drag a particular reaction or answer that you've typed in as a choice. So if I say, yes, I want to go to the cafeteria, if I just click and drag on the text that says I want to go to the cafeteria to another scene, that's where you're going to go next as a result of choosing that answer. So again, incredibly intuitive, very easy. I couldn't believe how quickly I was able to create this scenario in the course. So just food for thought, something to know about using Talkmaster and how easy it is to use. So going back into the presentation, so this is an example of a quiz. Now, I created this quiz in a previous version of iSpring, and I wanted to see what would happen if I brought it into a iSpring Suite 11 project, and it worked very well. The only thing that I had to make a change to fundamentally was the fact that the font that I had used for the presentation or the quiz in this earlier iteration didn't happen to be on my new computer. So I just had to update the fonts for all of these text bubbles, but the functionality worked. Everything behind the scenes worked. So this is a place where I made it possible, but not required for the person entering or taking the quiz to enter their name and their email and their company. You saw on the previous quiz slide that if they do provide their email, they would get their responses emailed to them directly. Now I have used asterisks to take out some of the more sensitive information, but you can see if I answer the questions, I'm getting feedback, and that could be a positive feedback or negative feedback. You can embed images into your quiz. Now, this could be something that provides a clue to the answer, or it could just be cosmetic. But my favorite thing about using really trying to maximize what you can get from the quiz function in iSpring is that when it comes time to learning more about the answer, you can embed a video. So this is me basically speaking the answer to, or more information about the question that they just answered. So talk about making your quizzes feel a little bit more interactive. You've got your instructor talking to you about how you did on the test while you're taking the test. These work great. I recommend using them if that's not something you've thought about doing. Now you know. Now you know it's something you can do. Nadia, I saw a question come into the chat that had to do with upgrading. I might let you speak to that in just a moment. I'm going to skip ahead through these quizzes. Here's an example of using an image. They could click on the image to learn more. Must complete the question. I'm going to get one of these wrong just so you can see. Now, again, they got it wrong, but you're going to learn more about the answer. And let's see here. Okay, and when we get to the end, we get our score. You can see a detailed report. You can learn more about the answers given. You can view the results. And you can even print out a PDF. So I know we're getting near the end. I did want to give people a chance to answer questions. I don't know how many folks are on, but I know it feels, but I feel like we'll have time. I don't know how many. I don't think we're going to get a lot of questions. So let me just say that when it comes to producing your content, one of the nice things about iSpring is that it gives you a ton of control and flexibility about your player. Okay. You don't have to be married to what some other programmer and some other tool builder decided was what your interface should look like. Now, I've worked in environments where I had free reign over customizing the look and feel of my courses. And I've also worked places where it was very important to be completely aligned with a business and its color matrix, etc. So just know, if you go in to the customized player option, you want to look for this little plus sign. It took me a little while to find how I could get access to all the options I was used to in previous versions, but this is what you want to look for. They give you all these predetermined layouts and some pre-chosen choices as far as what elements appear on your toolbar, etc. But if you want to have access to all of them and customize things completely, you just press this little plus, and that's going to give you access to that customability. Collaborate and review. We said that was going to be a thing that happened over and over again during the project's life cycle. So one of the neat things that I've seen in the latest version of iSpring is what they're calling iSpring Space. If you choose to publish your materials to iSpring Space, you will be able to add people by their email address to be able to look at the content you've shared, so you can control who sees it. And they have the ability to comment and potentially edit what you've provided. So that's a real advantage to have a single location where people are able to take a look at what you've done and you can get their feedback. You also have the ability to publish it to an LMS, obviously. You can publish it to the LMS of your choice, and you have these scoring methods available to you. But you also can publish it to iSpring Learn. Now, iSpring Learn is not necessarily part of iSpring Suite, but it is an additional service that charges you a rate that has to do with the number of people using the LMS where you're publishing your content. But if you don't have an LMS and you want something that's custom tailored to work very well with the content you're creating with iSpring, this is a great solution. I know when I started out, just figuring out what LMS we were going to use and whether or not it was the right one and how much we were going to pay for it. It was a tall order, and iSpring has gone a long way to maximizing that potential. So We're at 9:56 according to my clock. I want to say thanks to Nadia and iSpring Solutions. See if we have any questions. Just a quick look at the next slide. This is the kind of thing you're going to have access to after the fact. You're going to have a link to the storyboard template. You're going to have a link to the needs analysis template. I'm recommending some features online like Adobe's Enhance for dialogue, an app called Sizer that lets you immediately set the size of any window on your desktop to the resolution you need. And some articles that related to flow. So, Nadia, I'll turn it back over to you.
So thank you again for your wonderful presentation. So yes, guys, if you have any questions, please send them in the chat. And I have one question from Riley. Do you believe in ADDDF?
Hmm. So, I think that ADDIE is something that every instructional designer should be familiar with and then go from there. I think there are a lot of different models that do a more complete and thorough job of describing the process that you should be following as you learn more about what you need to create. One model that I'm fond of is called LTEM, and it puts a great deal of emphasis on evaluation and determining the effectiveness of the learning transfer. Okay, so if you're just starting out, you should acquaint yourself with as many models as possible, but constantly coming back, reevaluating, determining if you're going in the right direction. That's what I believe in. Not getting too focused on a particular flow or process, but just understanding that you don't want to get off track along the way. LTEM is spelled LTEM. Exactly. You can Google that and you'll learn everything you need to know. Ah, yes. I see the question coming in about balance and between children and work. Yeah, my sister doesn't have kids, but she has dogs. And so I've had many conversations with her about the importance of giving them something to do. Now you can't necessarily do that with your kids or your family, but I think that it is important for you to make it clear that if you are to be effective at your job and your creativity, that you need some privacy, you need some time dedicated to yourself. So yes, I absolutely hear you, and it is definitely a challenge. My job is just to acquaint you with what it feels like to be in the flow, so that you can figure out how best to get there. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. And David wants to know more about commenting in the iSpring space. Can you tell me more about it?
Absolutely. And I think I can, if I take my presentation out of Maximum, I can go to another tab that I have open. So this is iSpring Space, and this is where I have uploaded all of the things that I was working on while I put this course together. And what's great about it is that it's like a cloud storage for my for all of my work, so it's safe in it. If something were to happen to my computer, I've got it here. But you can go into a particular item and you can choose preview, collaborate, and share. And you can put the people that you want to add as collaborators. You can add them here, share the link so they can look at the material and have the same access to it that you do. When you are actually publishing, let me go back to the project. If I go to my project, and I'm sorry, I didn't have time to put a lot of focus on the actual iSpring ribbon. But everything that we talked about in today's course is available from this ribbon. If you click on publish, I just have to make sure that when the window opens, it opens on a screen we can all see. It's thinking. But basically, you're going to have the option to choose where you. There you go. You're going to have the option to choose where you publish the content. Sorry, that's iSpring Learn. Right. How you want it to be viewed. you can upload your source files, etc. And basically, similar to SharePoint, you have and Articulate, you've got a panel on the right side where if you are viewing something and you want to make a comment, you can add that comment that everyone else is going to see when they preview what you've published. So hopefully that answers the question. For the needs assessment, is iSpring providing some template? So a needs assessment, just like a storyboard, they aren't inherently aspects of an e-learning solution. An iSpring suite is primarily a content creation tool, something that lets you build e-learning courses as their own content. But as instructional designers and developers, that's just part of the work we do, getting the information we need, talking to our stakeholders, managing SMEs, and all the legwork that goes into getting data. Those are also part of the job. So I just thought it would be helpful if you knew that whatever form of needs assessment you want to use, if it's in a PowerPoint template, you can drop it into your project and it'll stay there and you can always refer back to it without ever going anywhere. Like you don't have to find it on a shared drive, a cloud drive. You don't have to worry about losing it. All those answers are right there present for you. So as far as I know, iSpring doesn't offer a template for a needs analysis, but you can find examples of them all over the internet. And I just picked one to share with you guys. So you'll have a chance to look at that. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you so
Okay,
much
David.
again.
No more questions. You're a unique person. I don't think I've ever run out of questions, but if no more questions for me, okay. Anything else? Thank you, Vivian. And again, big shout out to everyone who joined us today and who is watching this after the fact. I've enjoyed a really great relationship with the people at iSpring for over a decade, just because I believed in their product. And they were kind enough to share a little enthusiasm back my way and invite me to present a couple of times on these webinar series. Thank you very much. Thank you for saying you enjoyed the presentation. I really appreciate that. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much too.
Okay.
So we don't have any questions so far,
Okay.
so I think that we can wrap up our session, and we definitely will put the recording and all the links and materials that was mentioned during this webinar in the email. So stay tuned.
Yep.
And thank you very much, everyone, for coming today, spending that valuable hour with us. And thank you, James, for this presentation again. So I
I
hope you have enjoyed today's session, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. I did, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to keep the conversation going, as it were. Thank you, Nadia. Thanks to Maria with iSpring Solutions, and I look forward to talking with you guys again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much again. Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.